Thank you everyone for 1,000 subscribers. Really, that means a lot to me. I can't even find the words to describe what that feels like. Before I start this video, I want to address something that came up in my aggressive inline comments. I miss stuff. I know. What is sin? Nail me up now and get me a thorny hat. I play games and I miss parts of those games. So if you're new here and you're expecting some kind of insanely deep breakdown of every single mechanic, you've come to the wrong channel. If you're here for some kind of 100% completion thing where I document every single event in detail in a game, this also isn't that. I've said a few times that this is about my personal experience. The goal is to play as many games as I possibly can because life is really short, and that means things will definitely fly over my head. If you see something I miss and you point it out, you're a legend. Today, we're going to talk about MTX Mototrax, and thank you to everybody who suggested this. Like with Wakeboarding Unleashed, I didn't even know this game existed, so I probably would have missed it for a long time otherwise. Let's get started. MTX Mototrax, developed by Left Field Productions in 2003, was originally supposed to be Travis Pastrana's Pro Moto X. Late into development, the name was first changed to MTX Mototrax, featuring Travis Pastrana, and then later in December of 2003, the name was finalized as just MTX Mototrax. I'm honestly surprised they didn't call it MTX Unleashed or Motocross Unleashed or something. The common theory I keep hearing is that Tony Hawk's Underground was coming out soon, and the names were changed to reflect the move away from the Pro Skater series. I can't confirm or deny that, so if some developer sees this, then please leave a comment about what really happened. Same with Wakeboarding Unleashed. Aside from all of that, you might recognize Left Field Productions for their work on Excitebike 64, so they already had experience working on bike-based games. Also, Sean Palmer makes another video game appearance here, so that's pretty cool. The career mode in Mototrax is really crazy. It's broken up into a few different categories. There are supercross races, motocross races, freestyle events, and free ride maps with goals. The game starts at Pastrana Land, where Travis Pastrana and a few other dudes give us a run-through of some of the basics. I appreciate how much effort went into all of the voices for this game.
Man, I've got ramps set up all over this place. Most of them are set up with some really soft, easy landings so you can practice the tricks for the freestyle competition. Hey, whenever you're ready, meet me down the start gate of the motocross track. We'll see how well you handle real racing.
Right from the beginning, you're getting great explanations from everybody, and really in-depth looks at the course around the compound. It all does a really good job of teaching you the basics. The goals do as well. Like with the Pro Skater series, the goals in Mototrax exist almost entirely to teach you more stuff about the game. They also encourage you to explore and ride around more freely while you train some of your skills. Some goals can only be started by talking to a rider who's actually out riding, so you'll have to catch up with them to start. It really does well to show off how detailed and complex the free ride environments are. There are also the goals that you can complete just by doing stuff in free ride. It's faithful to the Tony Hawk format. The motocross and supercross races are really well designed. There are a few different classes of bike that you can use and different race weight classes to compete in. If you don't know what the difference is between motocross and supercross, I'll explain that really quickly. Supercross is an artificially built stadium racetrack that usually requires some extra tight technical precision to race through. Motocross is an outdoor track that makes use of the natural terrain to create a complex obstacle course. Both of them require an equal amount of skill, but they have a completely different learning curve that keeps them from being too identical. The last career mode, freestyle events, are a totally different beast. In each freestyle course, you'll have to complete a few different goals in order to finish the competition. One of my favorite goals here is the scripted tricks goal. The game will guide you along a path to follow, where you have to do a specific trick over each upcoming jump. Failing or missing the trick means having to start over. The reason I like this so much is because it's a fun new idea, it's the perfect size to not feel tedious, and it encourages you to learn to be a little bit more precise and various with the amount of tricks that you're doing. The pathway to finish the scripted tricks is usually really short, which means you'll only have to do it once usually to get it right. It adds to the amount of total objectives without becoming a chore, which is great because this game is fucking massive. There are so many races, maps, and goals that it's pretty hard to see all of it. Winning races and events will award you with cash that you can then use to buy more stuff like bikes and cosmetics that give you sponsorships that'll give you more cash, and doing some of the goals will also award you with cash, and having more sponsors means getting even more cash. But by far the coolest thing about the cash system is the whole shot rewards. If you manage to take the whole shot during takeoff, you'll get awarded more extra cash. That's a really good incentive to learn how to do perfect takeoffs. If you don't know what a whole shot is, it's pretty much that peak window when the first rider hits the first turn. Taking the whole shot is a massive game changer. It's the thing that can make or break your entire run. The fact that this game rewards that is a really awesome inclusion. Just getting the whole shot might not make make you instantly win, but it can give you a massive advantage out of the gate. The gameplay here is something familiar, but also entirely new. Have you ever played ATV Off-Road Fury before? It reminds me a lot of that, but with more map variety and a substantially bigger trick list. This is a racing game, so there are racing game fundamentals. You've got gas, brake, drift, donuts, and slopes that change your acceleration. There's also look behind and a first-person mode. But this is a Pro Skater spin-off, so you've got a ton of tricks and tech stuff. Holding down on the left analog stick and tapping the gas will send you into a wheelie, which is kind of accurate to real life. The trick to a good wheelie is getting that lean back and then maintaining a good amount of movement, and with FMX bikes you really need to kind of feather finger the gas to keep it up. The game tries to emulate this, and it does it really well, and it teaches you by having you wheelie a lap around a bus. To do tricks you need to tap different variations of buttons and directions while you're in the air. This game really makes use of the trick buttons. Some tricks are regular single direction, single tap tricks, others are double or multi-direction taps with single taps, and then things get really complicated with the multi-direction, double and triple tap tricks, as well as the multi-face button tricks that have you alternate between the buttons. On top of all of that are flips, which are done before you exit a ramp by doing multi-direction taps. To get the maximum amount of air off of a ramp, you need to pump your shocks by holding the right trigger just before exiting, and then release it at the peak. If you do it right, you'll maximize your amount of air time. This is used in races to maintain a good lead and speed over your competitors. Something else you'll be using really often to keep up your speed is your clutch. Holding the left trigger when closing in on a corner, and then releasing it when you hit the apex will give you a massive speed boost. The clutch can also be used at the start for a fast takeoff. The takeoff is optional, but the turning is something that you absolutely have to know in order to play through this game. You need those sharp turns to boost you forward, or you'll never win any of the races. The last cool mechanic is lean back. When you go over a rumble strip, holding down on the analog stick will shift your weight correctly so that you maintain your speed. The game actually uses wheel marks to show you the most ideal windows for everything. It's honestly pretty amazing. Everything I just described is stuff that the game teaches you naturally while you're playing. You don't have to go out of your way for any of it. If the goals aren't teaching you things, then the hints in every single loading screen will. It doesn't miss anything. Long tutorials that take time away from just playing the game suck. And games like this are the reason why. You can work the tutorial into actual gameplay by just teaching the player stuff step by step with the goals. If the tutorial is optional, I usually just skip it because I've played hundreds of games, and there are only so many possible things you can do with the limited number of buttons on a controller. If there's something that you absolutely have to know in order to play the game, it shouldn't be optional. The reason I like the tutorial in Wakeboarding Unleashed is because that game has mechanics that are unique to it. You have to know about those things in order to play it, and it doesn't take that long. That tutorial really can't be optional. This game does a great job tutoring you without ever holding your hand or making you feel like an idiot. This isn't the first FMX game ever made, so not everything needs to be introduced as if it's a brand new thing you've never seen before, and the new things can be introduced naturally. Visually speaking, it all looks great. Every single one of the courses has an intricate and detailed design that makes them all feel different from each other. All of the free ride maps have a huge scale to them, with a lot of hidden pathways, goals, secret areas, trick spots, giant jumps, and a lot more. The animations for each of the tricks looks great too, and there are smaller details too, like fumbling from a hard landing, or tabletops when you air drift. What I appreciate the most, though, is just how much effort went into the variety. Like I said earlier, this game is massive. There's a shit ton of it to see, and I know for sure I missed a lot of it. FMX games usually look pretty good, and this is among one of the best and cleanest. In that same way, this game has one of the best soundtracks of any game of its kind. When I think of FMX, I think of heavy metal, and there's no short supply of that here. Every single one of the tracks fits the game perfectly, and they contribute to this feeling of extreme fantasy that the game is pushing for. If I were to rank it among my favorite soundtracks from the Activision sports games, it would be right under Pro Skater 3, but just over Sean Palmer's Pro Snowboarder. There's a lot here to love, and a lot of recognizable bands for the more astute aughts metalhead. The last thing I want to talk about is the realism. Believe it or not, there really aren't many things you can do in this game that you can't do in real life anymore. Over the last decade, some of the craziest FMX records ever have been broken and set, and writers have been able to do things that make this game look a little bit more limited than reality now. Greg Duffy pulled off the world's first FMX double front flip 7 years ago. Josh Sheehan pulled off the first triple backflip 8 years ago. And then just 1 year ago, J.O. Archer became the first person to ever do it in a competition. Just a couple of months ago, Travis Pastrana himself performed a world first by doing a backflip underneath a trampoline jumper, and the jumper also broke a world record at the same time. FMX is nuts these days. fans. That being said, it does push a lot of the limits. Just because we've seen so much crazier shit now doesn't mean this game didn't heavily exaggerate what we thought was possible at the time. It's still a video game after all. Totally off topic, does anybody else think Mitchie Brusco in the 1260 should get a spotlight in the next Tony Hawk game? I mean, that was just a legendary moment. I remember watching the stream live and I couldn't believe it when I saw it. The man somehow made video games look more real than himself. At the end of everything, I'll go ahead and give MTX Mototrax a rating of 9 out of 10. This game is damn good. Really fun to play. It's massive and there's a ton of stuff going on. If you're a fan of FMX and you've never played it before, then it's definitely a game that I recommend. Or even racing games in general for that matter. But despite that, it isn't really a personal 10 out of 10. The racing is definitely the best of its kind, and the freestyle system is massive enough to keep you going for a long time. The thing that makes this game the most unique is all of the inspiration from Pro Skater and the other spin-offs. The free ride and goals systems are what keep this game fresh for the entirety of the playthrough, and that's really the highlight of the whole thing. There were a few bugs, but nothing major that would have broken the game, just graphics stuff or the occasional collision bug. It's not perfect, but it's definitely one of the best FMX games I've ever played. Now that I'm done with all that, we'll go ahead and move on to Underground 1 and 2, but there is still one more Pro Skater series spin-off that I've been neglecting. I want to get to that as soon as I can. But aside from Underground, there's also an entirely different series of games that's been requested a few times that I need to cover before I get there. So until next time, thank you, and have a nice day.